being the gambler? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so this is funny. I did not audition with the character that you see on the show. I didn't even know I was auditioning for the Gambler when I auditioned for the show.
Really?
Yeah, and then I booked it, and 30 minutes after I was called by my agent, I got a call from Jeff Johns, and then Jeff kind of gave me a download of who this character is, but he kind of talked to me kind of like in broad strokes. And so I kind of got an understanding of who the character was, and I started doing research online. And there's not a ton of information about the Gambler. There's enough, but he's not like this very well-known, huge character in the DC comics. And then I never spoke a word of the Gambler to anyone until episode 2. Like nobody ever heard it. I didn't even hear it, really. Jeff and I spoke on set during the pilot, and we talked about who the character could be, and he gave me his thoughts, and I gave him my thoughts. But nobody really heard the character until I spoke in that scene with Amy Smart in episode 2 in the conference room, where she's kind of trying to pitch her ideas, and I keep shutting her down. And yeah, I got done with the first take, and I just kind of looked around, and I was like, okay, this is how we doing? Everybody like it? And when they don't say anything, you know you're in the right place. So we just kept on moving from there.
That's cool. So it really is one of those things that sometimes you kind of work your way through learning the character as you go.
Yeah, so like for my preparation, if I have a dialect or any kind of affectation like that, that'll be the last thing that I layer on. So I want to understand what drives the character before I actually start putting on dialects. And the reason for that is because sometimes a dialect can drive you in an emotional direction, or can drive you in kind of a characterization of who you're trying to portray. So for me, I generally kind of layer the character, the accent or the dialect on last. And so when I started reading about the Gambler, what I learned about the Gambler was, he's a gambler, first of all. And so, he's got to have charisma and swagger, and he's got to be confident and self-assured, but he also has to be a person who can kind of adapt. He's got to be likable. Part of him has to be likable and smooth. And the word that I always use for the Gambler is syrupy. Like, I don't know why I always use that word. Like, he's like syrup. He goes through life as syrup. And so when you start thinking about those things and understand that he needs to be charismatic, and he needs to be kind of adaptable and friendly, and when he's talking to you, you're not sure if he's kind of likes you or he's going to stab you in the back when you turn around. And when I start putting that into my body, then that kind of like slow, drawn out cadence just kind of felt natural, because even if I don't put a dialect on it, like the cadence starts to kind of develop on its own, because he's in no rush to help anybody. He's just going to do his thing. And so that's not a far cry from just kind of twisting it a little bit and making it a little bit more fun. And so what I try to do is really kind of walk that line between being super grounded, but also paying homage to the fact that he is a comic book character as well. And so without being too kind of over the top, but at the same time making him fun and entertaining to watch was my goal, and it was the line I walked.